Hi Steve, always great to meet up with you and do some work on your game up at the range. Apologies, I'm doing this recap in the studio at the minute. It's quite windy, so apologies for the echoey and echoey effect and the disturbance on the sound. Hopefully it's not going to cause you too many problems. The things we discussed in the most recent lesson was the planes that we want to swing on. I remember what we discussed. Planes are a reference point, and we've got sort of 3 planes there just transcribed on the ground and in the air, if you will, that you can swing the club upon. You've got the yellow plane, which is hand plane, the red plane, which is elbow plane, and then the blue line, which would be through the neck, so neck plane, say. And planes are just reference points. What we want you to do is swing the hands up the hand plane line and the yellow line until about waist level. And then we'd ideally like you to elevate onto elbow plane. You can see you get a little bit beneath plane and the swing gets a little bit long. And then from there, we really struggle to come straight back down elbow plane during the backswing. So there's a little bit too much inward and we want to elevate onto this red line. If we got on the blue line, we'd be hitting a lot of pulls, a lot of cuts, wouldn't be generating a lot of power. The move you're making, I mean, that's where you used to be. So you've overdone the desired move. So what we're trying to get you to do is just really just trace a slightly different trajectory on the way back while shortening the arm swing. You can see there we're introducing a little bit more upward, still not quite there, but moving more in our desired direction. And we're also controlling the path or the distance that the arms travel during the backswing. So we've been on the blue line. We've worked very hard to get it deeper, get it more around ourselves, and that's something that we had to do. The overall swing now is so much better than it used to be. I mean, that first move away from the ball was always very fanned open with the club face, very wristy, very narrow and collapsed, and that's looking so much better now. It just needs tightening up and just adding to. All the time we're going to be moving you more and more sort of in this direction towards that red line or slightly above it, but we certainly don't want to be excessively below it, and we don't want to venture onto this blue line because we know what that causes, so we won't even go there. So different plane lines, different reference points for the swing, that's all they are. Ideally we want you to be swinging the club onto the red elbow plane line at the top of the swing so that you can come straight back down that line, approaching the ball from quite a neutral path, enough arc to produce a draw and a little bit of power, but not so excessive that it's hard to control and sends the ball veering off line, which is what we're seeing when we trace the yellow line, hitting out at it too much, potential for pushes, hooks, overdraws, hitting the ground behind the ball, etc. In regards to face on, one of the things we highlighted was that the centre of gravity, the upper centre of gravity, was getting way too far forward. You were adopting quite a nice setup position and then leaning excessively that way. So it was very, very difficult to then separate the centres during the downswing. The upper centre is so far forward that you can't really tuck the hips enough to ever get that tucked look that we're after. What we've got here is the upper centre just a touch further back, creating a little bit of side bend away from the target at setup, allowing you to then tuck the hips underneath in a much more acceptable manner. Just get the right screen on here. Creating a little bit more of a tucked look in the finish. So you're working the hips pretty much the same. It's just this upper centre isn't as far forward to start with. So as a result, we get that little bit more of a look that the hips have continued to move forward and tuck under, as opposed to the upper axis drifting forward and the hips working back. So a very different look to the finish, brought around really by just just adopting a little bit more of a neutral setup. Going forward, I'd like to see you with about 55% of your weight on your lead leg at setup. You do that pretty comfortably now every time you set up to the ball, so a little bit less fidgeting, get in there and hit that ball a bit quicker. Good luck with it, and I look forward to watching things progress over 2014. Well done.